to a delayed episode of this week's podcast. We were supposed to record on Friday, but we're going to be releasing it today, which is Monday instead. And today's topic is going to be telesales versus face-to-face sales, specifically in the Medicare and final expense mediums. So I think Chris can start on this topic as he's been a pretty successful face-to-face producer for a number of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So face-to-face versus telesales. I guess it really depends on who you ask and what their experience is before you filter the belief factor from them. But I could speak specifically from face-to-face and very limited experience from telesales. Face-to-face, you have to be willing to be consistent with your marketing, I think is crucial. I think a lot of times agents turn their lead flow on and off, and it disrupts their production on and off. Face-to-face sales, I think it depends on if you're going to appointment set or door knock, but whatever system you're going to implementing some type of a system. I think a lot of face-to-face agents struggle because they don't really have enough direction to go on. They're just kind of making it up as they go. When there's plenty of successful systems out there, you just have to decide which one you feel most comfortable plugging into. Face-to-face, I think you have the ability to sell a wider array of products. You know, a broker can be more of a diverse broker, where maybe in a telesales model, you should be working with less products. And face-to-face, you may not be able to work as efficiently, I think, as a telesales agent would say, but I think you can build bigger relationships with your potential clients and your existing clients. They know you, you can build inherent trust, you can get bigger replacement deals. You can go back and see them years and years later. So similar but different. So I guess that'd be my introduction comment on face-to-face.
And I can speak to the telesales because I had a small call center for when COVID happened. And I think there's two sides of telesales. There's the Zoom people. I don't think that's really as telesales as, over the phone. So if you're doing Zoom, that's more of an extension of face-to-face in my opinion, because you can use a lot of the same tactics as what you can do face-to-face. Like body language and whatnot, and you don't have to. It's just a little bit different than just seeing someone over the phone, or not seeing them at all, just talking to them over the phone. But one thing we noticed with actual telesales, so this was live transfers, so you'd have like the 120-second buffer, and I would say the biggest thing I noticed is that you can get eaten up a lot quicker in the telesales space. I mean, you can, if you're paying $35 a transfer, you have one bad day and you took 10, 15 transfers and you made no sales, you can suddenly be in the hole for $400 something. Whereas with face-to-face, it feels like you have a little bit more room for error. If someone's not home, you can door knock them again. With telesales, it's more of at least with inbound, it's more of a one call close thing. You can follow up with people and close them. It's not unheard of, but it's not as prevalent as you're taking the call and you're closing it. I think with face-to-face, when you're in person, you have a little bit more breathing room of, you can call, maybe you're upline for help, or you have a wider set of products at your disposal. Because if I'm over the phone, that person has to go, or they can't, for whatever reason, we can't get the signature on it. They don't have 30 minutes to sit through the prosperity phone interview with me. That can be a problem in some cases. And not to say that some people can't overcome that, but in my opinion, that was the biggest difference with telesales, is that you have such a short leash, whereas in face-to-face, I can sit with someone. I mean, maybe the life insurance presentation doesn't work. I can compliantly move over to another type of product. Maybe it's a dental product or it's a Medicare product. With telesales, you don't really have that, especially if you get a decline on the first. What we found is that very often, if you get a decline on the first app and you're trying to pivot to another level carrier, that can be pretty difficult because you have to keep that person on the phone again, rehash the part of the presentation for another 20 minutes, whereas that's not always possible. Now, if you're pivoting to a carrier like GTL, where you're just moving to graded, that's not as difficult. But over the phone, when someone hangs up, you're pretty much done with that presentation. And whereas with face-to-face, I mean, they can kick you out, but that's really not something that's as common as with telesales. So I think that's, if someone is considering telesales, it's important to have a mentor, someone who's done it and knows what they're doing, because it can be a very difficult business. And if you have one really bad week, you can be in the hole for a lot. Whereas with, I think, face-to-face, you can go back to old clients, you can door knock multiple times, leave the delivery notices, you can knock the neighbors. I mean, I've seen all kinds of strategies that, maybe there's some people that cold call final expense telesales. I don't know if there's any successful ones that do that, but that seems like it would be a monumental task, especially when even with the live transfers, it can be difficult. So
I will add one thing, kind of the coffee kicked in a little bit here. whatever system you choose to employ, whatever person you choose to work with, remember it takes about 6 months of anything in this business for it to work itself out in the wash. If we started selling the brand new Great Western product, which I'm pretty excited to put into Toolkit and put into practice, you really can't judge anything until it's been 20,000 of production, 6 to 9 months on the books, written a few, lost a few, serviced a few. When it comes to telesales, you're going to find a lot of people can easily pick up the phone and sell over the phone, but are they doing it 6 to 12 months later? That first group of fall off, that first wave of chargebacks, that first level of service work. And also, you need to filter out the unicorns. There are a few people in this industry that could make it no matter what they did. You could send them underwear leads and expect them to sell, a modified captive product over the phone. And this unicorn would be successful. But are the average Joes making enough money that it makes more money than if they had a JOB? So filter out the unicorns. How long have they been doing it? And then decide if what they're doing is duplicatable. Joe and I worked at an organization once where an agent had a radio show and she marketed to the Caribbean population. Absolutely massive levels of production. Probably a great agent. 0 level of duplication. Nobody else could do that. So when it comes to whatever you're doing, keep those things in mind.
So the issue in that case is almost too niched. I think to kind of build off what both of you guys said, I think one of the biggest things that I've seen, so the first 4 years of my agency was all face-to-face. I was planning that my transition to telesales was going to take about 3-4 weeks. I was obviously severely let down when it ended up taking, similar to what Chris said, about 6 months, because the bottom line is when you go from face-to-face to telesales, the biggest sales tactic that you lose is the face-to-face physical presence. And physical presence is huge, from the way that you lay your hand on the table, from the way that you're looking your clients in the eyes. And, I'll slide my chair back when I say something, and I'm trying to build the value. So you can definitely have that learning curve. I think that we can all agree the lifespan of a telesales agent is seemingly far less than that of a face-to-face agent, especially early on, because you're making up for that lack of physical connection with having to double, maybe even triple your lead cost because you just have to get more volume. When you're doing face-to-face, maybe a book schedule looks like 8 to 10 appointments in a day. A couple of them no-show you, a couple of them reschedule. You sit down with maybe 4 or 5 of them. When you're on telesales, you can burn through 10 in an hour, so it's the productivity is much, much higher. So also the lead cost is much higher. You can see yourself put in a much different financial position, similar to what Joe was saying. It can be a lot harder to get off the ground, which is why I think, to build off again what Chris said, is having that mentor to guide you. It can take you 6 months of a learning curve can easily be enough to not only put you out of business, but to put you deep, deep in debt and just have a bad experience overall. So it's, I think, imperative to have somebody who can guide you and say, hey, listen, the face-to-face stuff, you kind of got to wash all that experience and relearn something as if you're coming as a brand new agent, because the different metrics of face-to-face versus telesales are so different in the way that they need to be applied. If you can close somebody face-to-face, that doesn't transition to telesales. They're entirely different presentations in the way that you're building the value. So it can definitely be something that the learning curve could be enough to put you out of business, which is why you have to be, rocking the phones all the time, but more importantly, relying on somebody who's been there and done that, because the learning curve is just going to be too hard if you're trying to go in with no experience.
I think a lot of agents too, not a lot of agents, maybe a certain subsection of agents, they think that telesales is just going to be easier.
Right.
And because they aren't putting in the work necessary to be successful face to face, they figure I'm going to pick up the phone and be more successful. But the problem is they were never, it's a work ethic problem. It wasn't a, that's the problem why they're not doing good. They're not working hard enough. But I think also for a face-to-face agent, having some telesales skill set is valuable to put in your toolbox. You might have a referral. I had it a few weeks ago call me. She was in like Allentown, not too far away, but not a convenient distance. Strong referral, more than normal. And I said to her, Miss Betty, would you like me to come out and do an in-person visit, or can we take care of this virtually over the phone, or however you feel tech savvy? She's like, honey, we can do this over the phone. So understanding my telesales carriers, understanding telesales toggle and toolkit, understanding some telesales processes. I was able to sell it over the phone and kind of use the telesales model. But I think that's an important skill set to be able to pull out when necessary.
Well, it does work. I mean, we look at some of the agencies that we have in the toolkit that are moving to virtual. I think Equus is one that they're all virtual now, and I think the trade-offs that you have, some of the ones that I mentioned, maybe there's some cases where you can't cross-sell as well, or maybe in some cases in a vacuum, I'd rather have 10 face-to-face appointments than 10 virtual. But the difference is, A, you're not driving around, so you're not spending money on gas, especially now. You're not putting the wear on your car. I remember, I think in the field, I wasn't even full time, but I put almost 40,000 miles on my car one year. And that's, if you take the math on what that actually costs you, yes, cars can go into the hundreds of thousands of miles now, but in 1 year, if you're putting that on, that is a financial aspect that you do have to consider. So let's just round it off and say in a given year, you're putting $6,000, $7,000 out of your account, even if it's just depreciation and what you're driving. That's a significant amount. And that can be money that could otherwise go to leads or other parts of your business. And I think there's other factors too with virtuals. I can set more appointments in a day because I can plan for a no-show or the appointments are quicker. So maybe my closing percentage is 5% lower, but if I'm seeing 20% more people, that can also balance out. And it also does depend on your lead source, because if you are doing a virtual Zoom format, I think that if you're seeing twice the amount of people, I would rather have that than me driving around all day in a face-to-face format. So that's another thing that you can consider with the virtual model. It doesn't need to be as good as face-to-face because you can see so many more people, even over the phone, no matter what it is, because you're not driving around. You can work, potentially different hours, different time zones. That's not something you can do face-to-face. In general, once you hit like 8 o'clock, depending on where you are, chances are you're not going to get let in the door if you're door knocking. That's a little bit late. But if I'm working as an East Coast agent, I can do telesales pretty much as late as maybe 11 o'clock my time if I really wanted to. So if I had another job, that could even be something I could do part-time, whereas any agent will tell you part-time face-to-face is really not too feasible for most people because you're not going to have enough leads. You can get one or two chargebacks can really hurt you, but virtual, you can potentially get a full work day in, on the back end of the day or the beginning half of the day if you're on the West Coast. So I think that's another thing to consider, is that there's a lot of positives to being able to see more people. And again, your carrier selection is a little bit more limited, but pretty much every carrier now that has a somewhat of a face-to-face, even if it's an email signature, there's not too many carriers that only have the face-to-face option. So that's a nice thing too, is a lot of carriers have adapted. American Amicable, I think, has a great process. Prosperity has a good process. Royal Neighbors has one. So you're still getting the instant decisions. You can still tell the client, even the graded carriers like GTL, you just plug in the PIN number on the phone and you can sign the app. So I do like that the carriers are acknowledging the shift to the virtual model. So.
Well, the one thing I think is important, and when I dabbled a little bit in telesales during early COVID and then jumped right back in the field as soon as it was feasible, is a lot of times we look at things the wrong way. We look at, what is my lead cost? I'm spending $30 a lead, $50 a lead, $5 a lead. It's actually, what is my cost per client acquisition? Every single lead is obviously not a sale, but for every 5 leads am I making a sale? Is my cost per acquisition $110? What if I'm getting a live transfer and I'm closing far more live transfers than I am, Facebook telesales leads? So look at your cost per acquisition as well. And then the concept from Peter Walker, what is the lifetime value I'm getting out of whatever I'm selling? If you're selling mortgage protection over the phone, you might have a higher average premium this month. But if I'm selling Medicare Advantage or supplement over the phone, am I getting a higher lifetime value per this client that I've acquired? You sell a $90 a month term policy, you get paid your first year commissions, and then it's over. You get an MA client on the books, you're going to get paid far longer and maybe make more money. So don't get caught up in the minutia of what we talk about. What's my lead cost? How much does it actually cost me to get a client? And then how much do I make over the lifetime of that client?
Yeah, building off that is making adjustments where necessary. Your CPA and your LTV have a direct correlation to not just your lead cost, but what type of lead are you getting? Are you working in, it's very common phrasing that in the lead generation space, online leads versus offline, online being internet leads. If you're an online internet lead, it's best to be worked online via the phone because of just the higher volume. Whereas an offline lead, maybe like a mailer, mortgage protection or fax mailer, those are best to be worked offline face-to-face, just in the, how they're designed. So yeah, I think Chris made, that's a huge point. If you don't know how much money it's taking you to acquire a client and how long that client's going to provide you a lifetime value, those two metrics alone can make or break your business, especially with the lead cost of today and the lead type that you're working. If you're working, maybe, with FFL, you have your instant internet leads. Those, you can crush those face to face, but when you try to do that over the phone, you're going to see far less closing ratio. You're not going to see as high of retention. You're going to see a lot more, disconnected numbers, a lot of hangups and stuff. So I think ultimately what you guys both already hit on is having the ability to pair the two. If you need to go run the field in your warm market in your backyard, do that. But having the ability to pivot and sell over the phone is going to make or to break it. I don't think one, I'm sure other people will probably heavily disagree, but I don't think one is better than the other. I think working them cohesively is going to be ultimately what, is going to be the best for your business overall.
I think everything works. It's just, are you actually going to go to work? A lot of agents want to be their own boss, but they don't actually want the responsibility of being the boss. People want to be self-employed, but they didn't even want to put in the work to be employed. So a lot of these things make sense, but in the end, it's implementation that matters. Guys like Joe could sell a captive product over the phone and be successful with it, but it's because he's putting the work in. He builds, a multi-million-dollar software company because he put the work in. But all of the things that we tell you and you listen to today, if you're not actually going to do anything, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, I do see the mentality of some agents that think that I see some people say, it's usually agency owners, that it's endless opportunity. Whether it's, I'll talk about the Medicare space, maybe endless opportunity, 10,000 seniors a day, etc. But you talk to any of these seniors, they're getting 8 to 9 calls a day from different call centers. You talk to them, and it's uncanny. Half of them, you'll hear the Medicare commercial in the background when you're talking to them to this day, even with the companies try to crack down on that. So I think the virtual opportunity, and there's many agents on the virtual side that do very well, but that creates an additional opportunity face to face, because many of these people, I won't say most, are just sick of the calls. They're not going to do anything over the phone. Now, obviously, if they've sent in a request, that can be a little bit different. But as far as being marketed to, if you can be someone who goes face to face to that person, or at least over Zoom, I mean, me personally, I didn't notice any difference in my retention for my Medicare clients from face to face versus selling virtually. And there's a pretty good sample size on both sides, in a pretty competitive market in the greater Philadelphia area. So I think that it's not a good thing to be discouraged. If you don't find success virtually, go face to face. If you don't find success face to face, you might be a lot better virtually. And I think there's a lot of excuses that float around. Like, if you look younger, I mean, I started when I was 18, I looked like 12. So, and it didn't make any difference at all. So I think there's a lot of excuses that people will give towards success, when at the end of the day, it comes down to duplicating a successful and proven method and finding something that maybe you really like virtual, and that's, you'll put more effort towards something you like. So that's something too, is you don't have to force yourself to do something that you don't enjoy, because face-to-face might not be for everyone. Virtual isn't for everyone. Neither is telesales. So that's, I think, a pretty good place to end it. So we will be at Medicare Con this week. That is, I believe it's on the 21st through the 23rd. So we're flying in on the 20th. So if any of you are going to be at Medicare Con, let us know. We'll have a booth. I believe we're booth number 22, 23. So we look forward to seeing you all there. Today, we're launching finally our dental vision hearing platform. So look out for that. We'll put an announcement out on Facebook. And I did make another post about this, but we are changing our pricing model. So we're getting rid of the higher price plan, and we're bringing Medicare, the Medicare supplement and dental vision hearing to every plan. So if you have an agency plan, they might have restricted it, so you might not be able to see it this evening. But for everyone else, if you have an individual account at the very least, you'll be able to see both MedSup and dental vision hearing in the platform as of very late tonight. The only dental carrier, important one I think that we're missing, is Emeritus, and we will be getting in Humana over the next few weeks. But we have everything else: Cigna, Manhattan, Aetna, NCD, and the several others. So we're pretty excited about getting that out as well. So if you guys have any questions about the platform, if you're interested in seeing what it can do for you and your business, you can reach out to us directly on our website, insurancetoolkits.com, or you can send us an email directly. All of our names at FEX Toolkit: Joe at FEX Toolkit, Colton at FEX Toolkit, and Chris at FEXToolkit.com. Thank you, guys.